The situation in British Columbia has taken a dramatic turn as thousands of families are left in limbo due to significant delays in crucial housing repairs. The Premier of BC is now facing unprecedented levels of outrage from residents, many of whom have been living in substandard, unsafe conditions for far too long. As winter storms hit the province and critical housing infrastructure continues to deteriorate, tensions are rising and the public's patience is running out. What started as a minor issue, delays in repair work, has snowballed into a full-blown crisis, threatening to unravel the delicate balance of British Columbia's housing market. In recent months, the delays in critical repairs to thousands of homes in BC have led to growing frustration and panic among residents. Official statistics from the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, suggest that over 5,000 homes in BC are still waiting for much-needed repairs, with families facing unsafe living conditions. Many of these families are now spending their nights in homes without basic essentials, no heating, plumbing, or even a solid roof over their heads. For those who live in these dilapidated homes, each day that passes without repair is a reminder of the province's inability to deliver on its promises. The crisis began innocuously enough. A few months ago, the BC government, led by Premier John Horgan, promised to expedite repairs for homes that had suffered structural damage or wear over the years. Many of these homes were part of BC aging housing stock, particularly in areas like Vancouver and Surrey, where the demand for affordable housing has surged over the past decade. But as the weather worsened and winter set in, the construction projects meant to address these issues came to a screeching halt. For families already dealing with the high cost of living in Vancouver's real estate market, this delay was a disaster in the making. CMHC's most recent reports highlighted that, in some cases, families were being forced to wait up to 6 months for essential repairs. Local contractors were overwhelmed, unable to keep up with the demand, and many had to suspend work due to a combination of financial difficulties and supply chain disruptions. Materials became increasingly difficult to obtain, and costs skyrocketed, leaving some families in a state of uncertainty about when, or even if, their homes would be repaired. As these delays continued, the Premier's office found itself facing intense scrutiny from all sides. Public protests erupted in various parts of the province, with residents demanding to know why the government had failed to meet its own deadlines. Social media quickly became a battleground for those voicing their frustration, with hashtags like #RepairBC and #FixOurHomes trending in the wake of Premier Horgan's failure to take swift action. What had initially been a localized problem was now snowballing into a public relations nightmare for the provincial government. The Premier's repeated assurances that the situation was being addressed fell flat. Instead of action, residents were met with empty promises. In fact, according to insiders within the BC Housing Ministry, many of the repair funds that were allocated to fix these homes had been redirected or mismanaged due to ongoing internal bureaucratic inefficiencies. This revelation sent shockwaves through the public, as it became clear that the crisis was not just the result of delays, but rather a deeper systemic failure. Political pressure began to mount. Opposition leaders, including Liberal leader Kevin Falcon and NDP backbencher Melanie Mark, demanded immediate accountability. They accused Premier Horgan of mismanaging the repair process, which had led to massive delays. They also pointed to the lack of transparency within the BC Housing Ministry, which had failed to disclose key details about the status of the repairs. As each day passed without a clear solution, Premier Horgan's leadership came into question, not just from the public, but also from within his own party. As the outrage grew, so did the consequences. Many homeowners, now facing damp, mold-infested conditions, were forced to seek alternative accommodations. This added extra financial burden for those who had already been struggling with the high cost of living in Vancouver. In some cases, families had to use credit cards to pay for temporary housing or moved in with relatives, both options, putting them at greater risk of financial instability. The human cost of this crisis became increasingly apparent. One poignant example was the story of the Martinez family in Surrey, who had been living in a home with a leaky roof for over 6 months. Despite repeated calls for repairs, they were told that their case was on the list, but had not yet been prioritized. When the rain began to pour, they found themselves trapped in a home that was slowly falling apart. Their financial situation quickly deteriorated as they were forced to pay for temporary housing while still paying their mortgage. The stress of the situation affected not only their financial health, but their mental well-being. They were far from alone in their suffering. In the meantime, the B.C. economy was also beginning to show signs of strain. The province's once booming construction industry, which had been the backbone of the local economy, was now facing a major downturn. Many developers, unable to secure the necessary funding to continue their projects, were forced to either scale back or abandon their work altogether. This left countless housing projects unfinished, with no clear timeline for completion. As construction costs continued to rise, affordable housing became increasingly out of reach for those who needed it most. This compounded the housing affordability crisis that had already gripped the province for years. Vancouver, in particular, had become one of the most expensive cities in the world, with home prices reaching record highs. For those already struggling with housing costs, the delayed repairs were a bitter blow. As real estate prices continued to climb, the dream of homeownership slipped further out of reach for many. The banks and financial institutions were not immune to the turmoil either. Major players like RBC and Scotiabank had been keeping a close eye on the situation, aware of the potential for a housing market collapse. The delays in repairs were only adding to the growing sense of uncertainty within the market. Some analysts were already predicting that the combination of rising interest rates, tightening regulations, and a housing supply shortage could lead to a market correction in the coming months. While these projections remain speculative, they paint a bleak picture for British Columbia's future. If the Premier fails to address the situation swiftly, the province could be looking at an economic crisis that extends far beyond just the housing sector. The longer the government delays the repairs and the more families suffer, the harder it will be to repair the damage both physically and politically. As the Premier scrambles to regain control of the narrative, the question remains, can the B.C. government fix the damage before it spirals further out of control? Or is this just the beginning of a much larger crisis, one that could reshape the province's political landscape and its housing market forever? The fear of continued inaction hangs over the province, leaving families trapped in their homes, their futures uncertain. As winter sets in, the real cost of these delays will be measured not just in dollars, but in the toll it takes on the lives of those most affected. With no clear end in sight, the clock is ticking, and with every passing day, the stakes continue to rise. The Premier's next move will be critical, but will it be enough to appease the growing storm of public anger? Only time will tell. As British Columbia grapples with one of the most significant housing crises in its history, the tension between the provincial government and its residents grows stronger by the day. While Premier John Horgan faces mounting criticism for failing to resolve the widespread repair delays that have left thousands of families in distress, the public's frustration is increasingly turning to anger. The promises of swift action have proven empty, and as each day passes without real solutions, the Premier's credibility and leadership are pushed to the breaking point. Yet, as the storm of outrage swells, the crisis is only deepening, and the looming questions about the province's future remain unanswered. In the months following the announcement of the housing repairs, B.C.'s residents were promised swift action from the government. Yet, these promises have proven to be just that, words without action. For thousands of families who have been living in deplorable conditions, time is running out. These residents, many of whom have been waiting for months, continue to face harsh weather conditions in homes that are uninhabitable. Leaking roofs, broken plumbing, and unsafe foundations are just the beginning of their troubles. The impact of these delays is being felt across the province, and the Premier's office has yet to provide a coherent plan to address the issue. The delays are no longer an isolated problem, but have now reached a breaking point. Families who were already struggling to make ends meet in Vancouver's notoriously expensive housing market are now being forced into untenable situations. Some are living in homes without proper insulation or heating, while others have had to spend money on temporary accommodations or even resort to living with relatives. As winter storms batter the region, the damage caused by these unresolved repairs grows more severe by the day. The emotional toll is immense, and the financial burden is only making matters worse. The human cost of this crisis is staggering. As the damage to homes escalates, so does the strain on families. These are not just numbers on a report, they are real people facing real challenges. The Jones family in Burnaby, for example, has been living in their home for over 6 months without heat. Their attempts to get the necessary repairs have been met with delay after delay. The frustration has reached a boiling point as they struggle to keep their children warm during a bitterly cold winter. The financial strain is also taking its toll. The cost of temporary housing, combined with the loss of productivity for parents who have to take time off work to manage the situation, is pushing them closer to financial ruin. Across the province, similar stories are unfolding. The Simpsons, a young couple in Vancouver, have been stuck in a deteriorating apartment that has been infested with mold. They've tried to get repairs done, but the waiting list for work is months long. Every day they wait, their health deteriorates, and their hopes of a better life seem further out of reach. Stories like these are becoming more common, and the pressure is mounting. Premier Horgan's government, which once seemed poised to solve these issues, is now at the center of the storm. While the government's inaction continues, the crisis is spreading beyond just housing repairs. The construction industry, once one of BC's most robust sectors, is now teetering on the edge of collapse. The delays in housing repairs have caused a ripple effect throughout the supply chain. As construction projects stall and developers are forced to cancel or delay their plans, the costs of construction materials are soaring. Builders are unable to secure the necessary resources, and many are pulling out of projects altogether. This has devastating consequences for the future of affordable housing in the province. The dream of homeownership is already far out of reach for many. And now, even the prospect of secure rental properties is slipping away. The economic fallout of this crisis is becoming more pronounced. According to a recent report by RBC, the ripple effects from the housing repair delays are expected to affect the entire province's economy. The construction sector alone accounts for a significant portion of BC's GDP. And as more developers abandon projects and fewer homes are built, the entire province will feel the impact. The housing market, which had already been in a precarious state due to rising interest rates, is now facing even more uncertainty. The risk of a housing market collapse is real, and it's no longer just a matter of affordability, it's a matter of stability. Moreover, the political consequences of the crisis are growing. As the Premier's approval ratings continue to plummet, opposition parties are seizing the opportunity to capitalize on his failure to lead. The provincial NDP, once strong in its support, is now facing a backlash from voters who feel that their needs have been ignored. As the crisis deepens, opposing politicians are demanding a change in leadership. Their criticisms are gaining traction, and it seems that the Premier's political future is now tied directly to how quickly he can respond to the housing disaster. The housing crisis in British Columbia has exposed fundamental weaknesses in the province's governance. Bureaucratic red tape and mismanagement have contributed significantly to the delays, as local governments and provincial ministries have failed to coordinate effectively. Reports from various insiders within the BC Housing Ministry indicate that the crisis was exacerbated by lack of oversight and the misallocation of funds. These revelations have only fueled public distrust in the government's ability to solve the crisis. The supply chain issues caused by global disruptions have also contributed to the growing problem. Rising construction costs, combined with shortages of building materials, have left contractors unable to meet deadlines. The BC government's promise to fix the housing crisis now seems like an unattainable goal. With interest rates continuing to rise, many potential homebuyers are frozen out of the market altogether, unable to secure financing. As a result, demand for housing remains high, but supply is limited, making the situation even more dire. The real threat looming on the horizon is a collapse of the housing market. If the government continues to fail in addressing the repair delays and the underlying issues with construction, the province could be headed for a full-scale housing meltdown. Many financial analysts believe that BC is on the brink of a housing crisis that could send shockwaves through the entire Canadian economy. If the Premier's leadership continues to falter, it may not just be a political crisis, it could be an economic catastrophe. What happens next is crucial. As families continue to suffer, the government's credibility is dwindling. The Premier is facing growing calls for resignation, but whether or not he will take decisive action remains to be seen. The people of British Columbia deserve better than the empty promises they have been given. Will the government finally step in and address the crisis? Or will it be too late? If action isn't taken soon, the damage to BC's housing market and the province's reputation may be irreversible. Comment has shown, if you believe BC can still recover from this crisis, or if you think it's already too late. Subscribe to our channel for the latest updates as this disaster unfolds, and make sure you don't miss the next part of the story. The damage has been done, but will B.C. find its way back? Or is this just the beginning of a much bigger catastrophe? Stay tuned, and we'll uncover what's coming next.